We've got a really interesting case study that recently came along as a very unexpected new client in New Zealand. And this happened because somebody who is a marketing manager in Australia bought my book from Amazon, the Adwords Bible for E-commerce, liked it, and it has got several dozen 4- and 5-star reviews. It's been very well accepted. And he liked it enough to make contact with me and ask for some help, because he'd got a client in New Zealand, he's in Australia, and he didn't know what he was doing with this client, which is not that unusual, because what we do is pretty complicated, time consuming, it can be risky and expensive if you get it wrong, and if you're going to buy clicks, you really need to know how to do it right. So the New Zealand client was very typical in that nearly everything was wrong with it. The only thing that was right with it was that he was actually buying AdWords clicks to start with, so he got some data, but what we could see was that there was no sales and revenue data in there to look at, so nothing could be done with it until we got that part fixed, which is the first and most common thing that we have to fix, is figuring out the sales numbers and the revenue and the money that's coming in. The other really interesting thing about this client is that he's in New Zealand, which is a brand new territory for Google Shopping campaigns. Now, Google Shopping campaigns have been around since 2009, and they started off in the US, and then they came a few years later to the UK, so we've got years of experience with the Google Shopping campaigns, and we know they can work really well. And there are some countries like New Zealand and Singapore and South Africa and Ireland, which are all brand new countries for Google Shopping, literally within the past, the early part of 2017. So this was really interesting. So could we take a merchant who was getting nothing right and didn't have shopping campaigns and didn't have proper search campaigns and wasn't following revenue, could we figure this all out and make him successful and show him the money, first of all, and then show him a pay rise by doing Google Shopping for him, which he'd never done and not many people are doing in that country because it's so new and different. So we had to figure out literally everything for this client. He's in a particular marketplace that sells technology-related products with consumable items attached to them, but he's typical in that his sale is quite a big ticket item. So it's an average order value of about $100, New Zealand dollars. And so we had to see, firstly, how his cart worked. So before we can integrate everything that we need to integrate and make it all work, we have to understand all the particular technologies that are in use, because every merchant is a different merchant. Even if they're selling the same products, they might have different shopping carts, different payment processors, all kinds of different moving parts. So even though we work with merchants who might sell the same or similar things, they're doing so from a very different platform. So it has to be built and engineered in a different way. So we figured out that this merchant was using a thing called OpenCart, which is a free open systems platform which you can build your your online shop with, and it's free, it costs no money, so that's a good thing. But the not so good thing about those kinds of carts, free carts, are that often technical support for them is not good. Their functionality is not good. It doesn't give you everything that you need to get done. So in the case of OpenCart, because there was no revenue tracking in place, we had to figure out a plugin which is sold on the OpenCart marketplace, which can do that for you. So there's a lot of those to choose from, and we chose one, and it could do two things that we needed it to do. One is to actually export all the merchant's products so that we can build his merchant center and run shopping campaigns, which you can't do without that capability. You have to have a merchant centre, you have to get your products out of your cart into your merchant centre, otherwise you can't run shopping campaigns. So we figured out a plugin for that, and we had to figure out a plugin which could do as revenue tracking, because OpenCart can't do that on its own, just like it can't export products on its own. It's very basic. So, and this is the downside of a free product like OpenCart. But with these extra plugins, we managed to get it working within a short period of time. So we could export his products, ready to get merchant centre, ready for shopping campaigns, and we could track his actual revenue values, which we were really pleased about. So we built the whole thing completely from the ground up for this merchant. He didn't have a merchant centre, he didn't have a way to export products, he didn't have a way to track revenue. We put all that lot together for him. So in a way, this was the worst possible merchant that we could have, because we had to do everything, because he couldn't do anything other than he'd got his products and he'd got his web store, and that was it. And we had to figure out all the other pieces. So we did all that, and we started to show him the money. We turned on a shopping campaign for him. And in fact, with this merchant, we turned his shopping campaign on before any other search campaigns, which often is the opposite way around. Often a merchant is running search campaigns already and maybe getting some things happening, and we may be able to start showing him the money in search campaigns first. But with this merchant, because he'd never done shopping and it's new in New Zealand, we thought we'll go for shopping and see how we do with that. So we set it all up, turned it on, and literally the next day, money was coming in from sales, from shopping campaigns that he'd never had before. And it's a whole new territory, and we started to see that the thing was really working incredibly well. Because it's a new location, a new territory, there's a lot less competition, so click prices are cheaper, conversion rates are really good, conversion costs are low, conversion values are high, and return on ad spend is very high. And where we would look to be seeing kind of a benchmark figure of around 2, 3, 4% for conversion rates, in other words, who buys what, we were finding huge conversion rates for this merchant for these products in New Zealand, absolutely huge. We are talking 50% conversion rates, we are talking 100% conversion rates, literally. Somebody who clicks on the ad, comes to the site and buys. 100% conversion rates, and ridiculously cheap click prices and ridiculously cheap conversion costs. And the return on ad spend numbers that we've got across the account as a whole are so huge for e-commerce that I've never seen them before. So we're seeing an average return on ad spend in about 3 weeks. So we've only been recently doing this for this merchant. In about 3 weeks of advertising, we are seeing an average return on ad spend of about 12, which is to say 1,200%, which is to say he spends $1, he gets $12 back in return. And this is a classic example of what we can do with a merchant like this who gets these kinds of results. Is the first thing we do, once we see a few days, literally, of this kind of data coming in, we're like, turn up all the dials, put the bid prices up, accelerate the campaigns, increase the daily budgets, because the thing is just going like gangbusters, and we want as much of this as we can get our hands on. So we've taken this merchant from nothing and completely built the whole thing from the ground up and got him sales of, on average, in excess of $500 a day, every day on average, more, since we started. And this merchant is obviously very happy with what we've been able to do. And we are very happy to see these kinds of numbers, because they are really impressive. And it's just symptomatic of a new marketplace altogether, a new location. So if we can push that out further across the merchant community in New Zealand, you know, for OpenCart merchants, for all the other carts out there, BigCommerce, Shopify, Magento, all those others that we've got experience with, we can start making some really happy merchants in New Zealand.